We all know that funding is an important part of business, but why and how much funding do you really need? All right, so the first thing that I talk to entrepreneurs about is first, you got to understand your why. Now, I know that might sound like kind of like wishy-washy. And no, I'm not a motivational speaker, but I do think it's important to understand like what's your why? Why are you starting this business? How are you running it? For example, I have friends that, for them the things that matter most are control, and they want to be able to, go home at 5 o'clock and be with their families, and they want flexibility and all of those other things. And so they have chosen a business and a funding strategy that works for them. They're never going to be billionaires, most likely, right? And if they do, it's going to take them like 40 years to get there. But on the flip side, they're going to have like a great lifestyle. And so their why is going to be very different than somebody else's that wants to build a rocket ship to the moon, and where they're driven by money and ego and fame and success. And those aren't bad motivations, honestly. Like whatever, in many cases, whatever it takes for you to get there can be a good motivator. And then I know people that are somewhere in the middle, right? They want to raise a little bit of money. They want to grow like a nice, healthy sized business and sell it. And then they want to retire on the beach and call it good. There are a lot of different motivations. But I think the first thing you have to understand is like, what's your why? Why are you running this business? What's the outcome you want? What's the lifestyle you want? Because if you're building a rocket ship to the moon, man, it is going to absorb your entire life. And it will be really hard to differentiate between like personal and business life. On the flip side, if you're not trying to build a rocket ship to the moon and you're trying to build a nice lifestyle business, then you can build it in such a way that you do have a great lifestyle. You have all the flexibility in the world and a lot of opportunities to still make a good living. So first, understand kind of that why and what you want. Now, let's assume that you want to go on more of the lifestyle side of the business. How do you fundraise for a lifestyle business? Well, in my mind, there's a few different ways. So one, try not to raise at all. And I think, there are a lot of businesses that you can start out without a lot of money. A lot of e-commerce businesses don't start out with a lot of money, right? They start out with enough where somebody, they get some initial products off the ground. I've got friends that have raised money on Kickstarter to start their e-commerce businesses. I've got other friends that have like used pre-sales to start their e-commerce businesses. I know other people that have just started out with one product. And, like my neighbor, his dad just bought a Rivian, and he was like, hey, I'm going to make tempered glass covers for the Rivian display screens, and I'm going to be the first to start selling those. And so, he went and designed it and borrowed some money from his family to put in his initial purchase order, which, is like a few $1,000s. So you can get started with a relatively small amount, and maybe it's, you have your part-time job and it's a side hustle, and you use your job to help fund your side hustle until your side hustle starts gaining enough ground to really take off. That's a totally legitimate and very, very common way to fundraise for a lifestyle business. Once you get a little more traction, then you can start looking at some alternatives. So maybe you mortgage your house and pull some money out from that. Maybe you take on some credit cards. Maybe you go and talk to your bank and apply for an SBA loan where it's a lot easier to get an SBA loan, and, you do have to put down a personal guarantee, but the rates are pretty reasonable and can provide some really, helpful capital as you grow your business. So, a lot of different ways to start and grow a lifestyle business. Generally, I would recommend not taking on too much debt because, the more debt you take on, the harder it is to control your own destiny, right? And if things go south, you're in a tough spot because you got to pay back that money. But the flip side is like debt that's appropriately used can be a real catalyst for growing your business and helping you achieve interesting things. So don't be afraid of debt, just use it appropriately. Don't borrow too much and always have enough buffer that you can cover your expenses. Now, look, there's some pros and cons of having a lifestyle business. One of the pros is that you do have that control over the company typically because you haven't raised outside funding. You don't have investors breathing down your throat to build this into a really successful business. As typically the largest or only or one of the largest investors, you have a lot of control over your lifestyle and your schedule. So one of the things that I love about being a venture capitalist is I basically run a lifestyle business. My partner and I, we're not a very scalable entity, but we've built the business in such a way that we were effectively profitable the very first day that we started, because we were able to get investors to commit to our fund, and then use some of the fees that we charged off of that to basically be profitable on our first day. And that's given me flexibility where if I want to take off in the middle of the day and go to my daughter's concert or, class and see her perform or whatever, I can do that. The flip side is, as an entrepreneur, and this is the same for all entrepreneurs, there's some nights where I'm working late. And that's fine, but I can kind of dictate my own schedule and have control there, which is really nice over being an employee, for example. But look, the downsides are there too. As I think about my business and the lifestyle aspects of it, right? Like they joke venture capital is the get rich slow scheme because you make a ton of investments. Some of them will pan off, but it's going to take a long time for them to really be successful, and all the rest will probably fail relatively quickly. And so, it just takes a long time of, you're just kind of building and building and building, and eventually, you do all right. And don't get me wrong, I think most venture capitalists have a really good lifestyle, but it's very different from hey, I'm going to spend the next 10 years going from zero to $1 billion company. That doesn't really happen in venture capital. And it's the same with most lifestyle businesses, pretty much all lifestyle businesses. It's like my friend runs this business, generates kind of $1 million in revenue. It has when everything is said and done, not very high profits, but they pay everybody really well and they're all pretty happy with the way it runs. And, they try to grow it a little bit, but that's not the biggest priority for them, which goes back to my understanding your why, right? Fundraising, on the other hand, is really going to set you up on a different path. You can move a lot faster as you raise money, but you will have investors breathing down your throat to build a big, successful company and drive great returns for them. When you raise venture capital, it's not like it's a loan, so you're not obligated to pay it back from the perspective of they're looking for, they treat it like a loan. But on the other hand, they're investing because they want a return, and so they're going to push you to get a return. And as I've explained on other videos, once you're on the venture capital drug, it's really hard to get off because VCs are going to push you to grow. They're going to push you to grow at almost all costs because they know that the markets value growth. And the reason why markets value growth is because markets value monopolies. They want to see your company grow really fast, acquire a ton of market share, and really establish itself as a winner in its space. Well, in order to do that, you have to grow really fast. And in order to grow really fast, you have to spend a lot on marketing and sales. And in order to spend a lot of marketing and sales, you have to raise a lot of money from venture capitalists. And if growth slows, it becomes really hard to raise more money, and it becomes really hard to sell the business, especially at a valuation that gets early investors a good return on their investment. Because every investor that wants to buy in needs to be able to believe that they can generate a return. And so you just end up on this never-ending rat race of having to raise more money to spend more on marketing to grow revenue so that you can go and raise more money at a higher valuation and so on and so forth. And that is ultimately one of the biggest cons, is that it kind of locks you in to this rat race where there's a ton of pressure. And, a lot of entrepreneurs, they can't handle it. Or they're just not the right person to scale up the business. And so oftentimes they get booted out of their own company and replaced by, others. They give up control. There are a lot of potential cons depending on your why. Now, if your why is hey, I care about money, or I care about prestige, or I care about time, and I want to build this thing and I want to have a huge impact, and then I want to retire on the beach as young as I possibly can, then all of those are good reasons, and reasons why raising venture might make sense for you. It may also be, and I personally think this is the best motivation and the best why, is that you as an entrepreneur can't imagine yourself doing anything else other than starting your company and solving that pain point for those consumers and those customers. You're just driven by it. You think about it, sleep about it. talk about it. It's just on your mind all the time, and eventually forces you to go out and take that risk, take the plunge, and start the company. And in that case, you're mission driven, and you are trying to have a huge impact on the lives of lots of people, and have your own little dent in the universe. And I think entrepreneurs that are motivated by that ultimately end up achieving some of the biggest outcomes. I think if you look at entrepreneurs like Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos and a bunch of these others, at the end of the day, that's really what's driven them. It's not so much the money. Once you're worth $1 billion, how much more money is it gonna do? It's not gonna do anything for you, right? And yet those individuals have pushed and pushed and pushed to build and achieve greater and greater heights with their businesses, because they are so driven by this need to create and build and solve problems and help people. And so with that, that's why I believe your why is so important, and what you want out of your life, because you just have one of those lives, right? In closing, I'd like to tell you the story about my friend. And I think there's some wisdom here. He posted something recently and was like, I got this advice from one of my mentors, and he said, I'm just like you, except for I know how to focus. And this friend of mine, it really kind of hit him hard, because he is a great entrepreneur, and he started lots and lots of businesses. But the problem is that he started lots and lots of businesses. And so to a certain extent, his why, whether he realizes it or not, his why was he just likes creating, but he doesn't like executing. And what that's meant is that he's built a lot of kind of mediocre businesses, frankly, that haven't been super successful. But if he would just focus on one and go all in and build it into something successful, he probably would be a successful entrepreneur. And so for me, that's one of the things that I think is a big takeaway, that whether you're building a lifestyle business or you're building a rocket ship business, and I don't mean literally rocket ships unless you're Elon, that you really understand your why, and that you have that focus to pursue it relentlessly. And if you do, I'm a firm believer that you can achieve outstanding success. Anyways, let me know what you think about this video down below in the comments. What's your why? What drives you? And if you enjoyed this video, check out my other video, What are the pros and cons of crowdfunding? Thanks.